Just got the block back from the machine shop. Looks like they did a couple thread inserts here and here. They sleeved the cylinder because of that crack that was here. They installed hardened seats and valve guides. I actually didn't ask them to do those two yet, but I was going to, and since they did them, I'm okay with that. I don't recall how far they had to deck it, and they did have to clean up the manifold side. It was pretty severely pitted, especially up in this area. Didn't get full cleanup, but that's fine. The manifold should seal. Hopefully. Yeah, that particular counterbore is pretty rough. Should have enough meat for my freeze plugs though. And as I mentioned in my last video about this engine block, it is bored to 40 over because these are the pistons that I have. When I brought the block to them, it was at just a worn out standard bore. 40 thou isn't going crazy. Based on the serial number, I already knew that this was a June of 1919 block. One thing that I hadn't bothered to really look at though was the actual casting date. Looks like it says 5/23 of 19, which would make sense. Cast in the end of May for a June car. I need to find someone who can do the Babbitt work now. Threw down a coat of primer. Broke down my connecting rods. Since I have the new pistons, took these pistons off. I'm going to see if I can save any of my original rods. 3 of them look pretty good. 1 looks pretty rough. I've got some backup ones. I should probably read a manual, but I don't know what's holding this on. Modified a small puller. Seems to be working. Oops. From a wear standpoint, these gears look fantastic. Can't wait to clean this thing up. Now, should I take all of these off? I have no choice but to go all the way. Can't let this sit like this. Three or four that are stuck, I think I'll be able to just remove the actual magnet from underneath them. Okay, these 4, let's see what magic I can do with them. I guess the ring gear is just like a heated press fit, so I'm going to leave that on. I emptied my parts washer so it wouldn't freeze, but might as well dunk this in some of the old fluid. That flywheel almost fits in that tub. Hopefully there's no holes in it. Hasn't moved at all. TT windshields are particularly hard to find. I have the top half, but I don't have the bottom half. And being lazy and just Googling what the size is, the numbers are all over the place. So I need to actually measure and verify. So the actual opening is 20 inches, 39 inches. A lot of the frames are around 39, so it's tricky to find the right one. This is the frame that came with that cab, although I don't know if it's even related. So the frame is 38.25 wide, 10.5 tall. I feel like this header piece is already on the truck, unless there's a second piece. I also thought that the TTs had a straight arm for the opening, although I do believe they had these add-on finger holds. The others were kind of a stamped deal, not screwed on. The local guy posted a bunch of Model T, Dodge, etc. window frames, and this one was in the picture. So I contacted him and said, hey, if that one's roughly 39 inches wide, I will absolutely take that. And he said, oh yeah, it is. So we arranged a time and I went to his house, and he was like, oh yeah, I don't have any of that stuff here. Well, where is it? Oh, it's at my other building. Can we go there? No, not today. A week later, he posted the stuff on Facebook instead of Craigslist. I said, hey, I still want that frame right there if it's 39 inches wide. Okay, yeah, I'm taking it to my house, blah, blah, blah. So I drive back down there and ask about the frame, and he said, oh, I think I sold all that stuff. Okay. It's like, well, let's take a look. Let's double check. So we go around his property, and oh no, he found the one I was talking about. And I said, can we verify it's 39? And contrary to what he told me the first time, it's not 39 inches wide. Cool, thanks, great. The only redeeming fact here is, while it's not 39 inches wide, it is like 12 inches tall. So I can shorten it and use the piece that I cut out to shorten it to widen it. So the construction is a little bit different, but I'm going to be modifying it anyway. Still on the hunt for a windshield frame. I found this one for a reasonable price. From here, that looks kind of like what I expected. Let's do the moment of truth. Well, that looks like it'll work. Looks like the holes basically line up, and the top frame matches up too. I'm pretty pleased with this. I just looked at a pile of parts that had a TT cab on it, and it had a windshield frame, but it was even worse than this. The guy was pretty firm on his high price, so I walked away from that one. So getting this frame took a while, but now I have it. So yesterday I returned to a Model T part stash that I've gone to a few times before. Every time I leave there, I tell myself, if I never go back, I won't be too heartbroken. And then I wait about 30 minutes. It's like, man, I need to go back and get some more parts. So here's some of the random odds and ends I picked up yesterday. A couple of valve covers for the single piece, a made in Canada front engine cover, a Tiger timer box. I think there's a Tiger timer in there that's used, but I just like the box. A shortened drive shaft and torque tube. Now this is where I got those Jumbo Giants, but I'm not sure if this is for one. So I'm gonna take the gamble on it and risk being correct that it might fit one of those. A couple of strips for the pickup bed. Hopefully they're the right size. I think I have one or two more, which is good because I wanted an original set. Looks like they're around the right length. I imagine they are the right length. A spring. I really just wanted those brackets on the ends because I'd picked up the missing pieces previously, and in pictures I'd seen that I left those behind, so I got those this time. Engine splash pan, which I hadn't seen before, but that's only one side of it. A TT running board. A 3-dipper oil pan. They had quite a few to choose from. Some were real cleaned up and primered and looking nice, but when you actually pulled them down and inspected them, they were pretty crusty and had bad spots. I just wanted one covered in old grease and oil because that'd preserve it better. And this one actually seems to be in pretty good shape. To be determined if I run a 3-dipper or a 4-dipper. A high radiator shroud. They had quite a few lows and quite a few low radiators, but my setup is going to be a high. And I already have a shroud, but might as well get more parts just for backup. A couple of frame cross members as backup, which is good because I have this Model T frame that doesn't have a front cross member. And I have my original T frame that may or may not need a replacement cross member. I've got a pretty impressive pile of Model T era wheels or rims and fellows, and I still don't know if I have a complete actual set of 4 or preferably 5. They all say Hayes on them. They're all the same size and seem to be the same configuration. Hopefully those fellows fit in there. It looks like the fellows fit in these rims. First time I'm actually putting one together. It's got a hole for the valve stem. I'd say that fits pretty well. Maybe I'm onto something. This would be for like a stationary T. Instead of the torque tube, this would bolt up to it. And this flat belt pulley. Unfortunately, this one's been broken, but I might have a pulley that works for this. A couple of transmission drums. I tried to find some that weren't cracked. Now, I don't know how to identify them offhand between the earlier and then the 26, 27 style. I think the drums got a different size. I'm hoping that I could use these. But I can identify which ones are for a starter or not. So I grabbed a transmission with a ring gear. And I went through the pile of ring gears and I grabbed some that looked either new old stock or at least in really great shape. They had some that were completely destroyed. A couple more of the triple gears for the transmission, spider for the rear end. I think that's part of a muffler, and some brackets that I don't recognize. Maybe a muffler hanger or mirror or flag hanger, don't know. I recently picked up a couple blocks from a barn. This one on the left seems okay. I didn't really look at it too much, but the price was right. This right one got me really excited. That's a Model A crankshaft in there. I was checking it out, really stoked. And then I noticed it's got a couple of speed holes in the block. There's some over here also. But the crankshaft spins beautifully. I mean, it's probably not tight. But you'd think if there was a major crash on this end, there'd be evidence of what might have caused that. Looks like this crank has been kind of ground down to clear something, maybe the oil pan. It's not counterbalanced. This is just how the Model A's cranks looked. It's obviously modified to fit a T though. It's sitting in the block, and I believe that flange is different. I'm definitely tempted to see if this crank and caps are still good enough to run. I might throw that in my 19. Have to get it balanced too. So looking at the damage on this side, yeah, it's pretty ugly. I'm guessing they're running overhead valves because they blocked off the ports with freeze plugs, and they blocked off this middle passage with just like a piece of metal and some rubber. It's the same on both sides. I'm guessing they were just running push rods through here. I just looked up the number. That's an April 1926 number. It has a provision to mount the hogshead. Notice on the back of this block, it doesn't have those 2 mounting points for the hogshead. This is an earlier block. I figured I'd break down this broken block that had the A crank and the heavier main caps on it. Babbitt looks used. There is no Babbitt in that hole anymore, and missing some cast iron. The mains of the crank look pretty decent, actually. Interesting. I mean, if I end up running this crank, that'd be fine by me. Someone had ground the throws, I guess, to clear the T oil pan. Hopefully there wouldn't be much more to do to this crank besides polish these, turn these, and balance it. It looks like it had been balanced at one point. It seems like drilling holes right by where it's connected wouldn't be the best, though. Figured I'd talk about this pile before the sun goes down. I'll claim that I was forced to buy this lot. There's a couple things I got in a barn find, but the rest of this was from a swap meet. The guy had 4 tubs full of Model T parts. I sorted out what I wanted, and I offered 50 bucks. He kept lowering the price on everything. Down, down, down. Got the lot for 65 bucks. There's almost too much to list. The cool highlights are that intake and exhaust manifold, that lightweight connecting rod someone drilled out. It's funny. Some headlight rings. One of the items that I had in my original pile was that Fordson coil box. That'll go nicely with some Fordson tools I've recently picked up. Here are some oil pan reinforcement ribs that go on the later T's, but I think I'll be able to add those to my earlier one. An interesting brake pedal I need to research. I got a whole bunch of keys. I'm also pretty happy about these wheel clamps. I started putting some hubs in a bucket. I've got a tub full of hubs at this point. Here's more stuff from that swap meet that I was forced to take. This is one of the boxes I didn't necessarily shop for. Spindles, brackets. Someone must have been using a rear end for a trailer. They put this pie pan to seal it off. I don't think I need any more body mounts, hubs, or spindles for a while. The non-T stuff was a Model A intake and exhaust. The intake is broken. The exhaust seems okay. And this Tillotson carburetor that is completely shot that they just spray painted. Like I said, there's a few parts mixed in from a barn pick session. One is this wishbone reinforcement. I don't know if that'll work on mine, but it was cool, so I had to have it. Also, this right-hand drive firewall, which is cool, so I had to have it. And there's a spare tire mount with a 1928 plate still on it from Minnesota. I got a couple original T crankshafts as well, and camshafts. Also grabbed this light and a stack of hubcaps. Did some more barn picking recently. I got a TT jack. The TT jack has a little flip top and a detachable handle. I got this set of magnets. I guess someone was polarizing them because they're all marked. It's just a board with magnets. But man, when those guys saw me pull that out of their barn, they were all confused and curious what this crazy contraption might be. It's a board with some magnets. Finally found a straight through Holley NH. Someone has added this intake deal on it, and they've done some shenanigans with the inlet, but it just kind of feels like JB Weld. If you don't know what a straight through is, you can see straight through it. Got another Hayes fellow, a tail light with a bracket, a bucket full of goodies, some transmission gears, wood blocks, a couple other odds and ends, some grease guns. This oddball cluster that I have no idea what it goes to. Looks like it has a mark by my index finger that says 1T42, 142. Anyways, just in case it's for a jumbo giant, I grabbed it. Got 3 of the mag coils. They had a stack of them. I thought about grabbing all dozen of them, but didn't know what they wanted for them, so I grabbed 3. They had a bunch of axles, but only one seemed decent. Got a couple floorboards. I'll check if those fit my TT cab. Guessing that board is for a different body style. Maybe I can trim them to fit this, but maybe not. I got a maybe aftermarket dash. Might put that in my 23. I picked up 2 frame rails and 3 of the radius arms. I got a bucket of smalls, as the guy called it. He didn't care what any of it was. I've already started sorting it. I found a couple handles. Probably a little bit more fancy than what would be on a TT. I think both my handles are broken. I have the other half of one of them. I have this matched pair of this textured style, so I'll probably use those. I would think they're long enough. It's about the right offset. I do have both inner door handles. The rest of the stuff is carburetor pieces mostly. A couple odds and ends. If there was like a new package of something, I grabbed it. A couple headlight terminals. Paid like, I don't know, a couple bucks for the whole thing. Looks like he wanted $8 for one of those. This is an interesting one I just found while barn picking. Looks like a Model T manifold, except it's a mirror image. Must be for one of those rare V8 Model Ts. This is the left bank. And it has this threaded portion here. Must be for an O2 sensor. Actually, I did some research, and this is a Model N, or R or S manifold, which came before the Model T. And that's pretty rare. It's interesting that it's just the opposite of a Model T manifold. It'd be cool to put this on and have a front exiting exhaust, except I think that's worth a few dollars, so maybe I'll sell it. I don't normally barn pick to flip parts, but maybe a Model N owner could use that one more than I could. Oops, I did it again. Got some more flathead parts at an auction. And some tools and whatnot, and a few fenders that are later than my collection. Basically the tools I got: a couple of pneumatic sanders, a body hammer, some porta powers, some Zep cleaner, and an old Walker jack that may or may not work for a couple bucks. I have one just like it, so if anything, this will just be parts, or I can make it work again. So here's the fenders, and I'm totally willing to be wrong about any of the assessments. Let's assume they're Ford. Okay, so this one looks like maybe a jail bar truck. Could be wrong. That one looks like 39. That one looks like Model A. Those two look like 36. That looks like maybe late Model T or Model A. So I wonder if this one would be like a pickup fender maybe. The holes seem fairly close. Interesting. That just means I need a right side now. And the wheels, we got two fronts. One's a metal fellow, one's a wood. One rear wood fellow. What looks like a 40 Ford wheel. And a later, probably 50s Ford wheel. In terms of Model T stuff, we've got a bunch of top irons. I guess actually woods. We've got a bunch of top woods for roadsters. These two rears, which I was hoping were electric, but they're gas, so I might trade them to someone for electric. Axle housing looks like maybe an earlier one because it has those interesting rivets. Drive shaft, a couple luggage deals. I'm pretty stoked on these springs. I got at least one complete kit and then a couple other tops. That's cool. Looks like a couple vaporizer type carbs, the later style. Bunch of fender mounts, running board, fans, steering wheel, random bits of scrap, maybe patch panels, maybe just scrap stuff. This was advertised as a scrap pile, although there's plenty of good parts. I would say for me, the best part in the pile was this aluminum high volume intake manifold. I don't know if it's an original 1913 or if it's a later reproduction, but I even measured that, and yep, that's the high volume manifold. They're currently available for $177. Windshield frame, steering column, random bits, front wishbone, windshield mounts, 4 spare tire mounts, a rim, a roadster door. This might be my first actual T head. I need to learn how to identify Model T heads. I'm guessing this is a tall one. A couple of gas tanks for like the 26, 27s. Don't know what this gas cap is. It's kind of cool. Wonder if it's like a gas gauge or something. And I'm guessing this is the remnants of a gas gauge. I believe this would be like a coupe trunk lid. It looks different than the Model A ones that I'm familiar with. Maybe it's like a 28, 29 Model A. And then for the later stuff, there's a 40 sedan running board, like a 50s hubcap, and some more 36 parts that go with those fenders. These wheels in the background weren't part of this score. Spare tire cover, 8BA, 59A heads, Model A parts, some AA engine mounts, a couple hubs, dash, a couple splash apron covers. This is an unknown pile, probably some Model T, Model A, and then potentially some Chevy stuff. And the unknowns continue. Looks like maybe a 40s rear window frame, don't know. Those might be Model T parts in the middle. That might be a Chevy radiator mount. That might be, that kind of looks like part of a two-door Model A, I'm not sure. And those look like maybe 40 parts of the floor and the centers. In the original video, I was speculating what these are, but I learned that these are from what's called a Smith Forma truck. It was before the debut of the Model TT. These were added onto regular Model T chassis to turn them into a large truck. Splash apron, a bunch more fender mounts, carburetor heat duct. 4 of them are the plastic style, which I'm not super excited about. And then just some random bits that were in the same pile. Everything that I've shown so far was all just in one disorganized pile. Yummy. A couple months ago, I bought that pile of, quote, rat rod scrap. And I didn't buy it to resell, but I figured the parts I don't need could go to good homes. And I finally found a home for these cowl tanks. I'm never going to need them, hopefully. I'm going to try to stick to one era of T's. I also sold that Forma truck bracket pair. Well, that's where my Model T sat for a few decades. Building's no longer there, so that concrete pad.